Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. Typically, when you think of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast, you might be thinking of agency owners, you could be thinking of SaaS owners, B2C, e-commerce, the whole shebang. This particular gentleman that I'm going to introduce you to, he's become a really good friend of mine, and he's in one of the most competitive industries in the entire world. You have to be really good, really strategic in order to not only out-compete, but also to get the attention of the right customer profile. This particular gentleman has one of the most successful personal injury attorneys in the entire state of Florida and beyond that, across the nation. This is no small feat. In fact, you have to be really, really, really good to get to where he is right now. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to my good friend, Matt Dolman. Welcome to the show, my friend.
I appreciate it. That was a long intro. I didn't know when to break you up. I really appreciate the kind words, though. Thank you so much for having me as a guest.
Well, when you think about the thousands of attorneys that are just, in one county alone, I feel like, let alone the entire state, and yet you've been ranked consistently as one of the elite attorneys. And I think that's only a delegation given to the top 1.2%, I think, of all attorneys in the entire state. And then when you look at the size of your law firm in comparison to the size of many of the other law firms out there, your firm is substantial.
Decent sized PI firm. Yeah, I appreciate it.
I give you a hat tip for your modesty, my friend.
Thank you.
That doesn't come by accident. Before we even get to the strategy, though, I think it's important for us to sort of level set what it means to be a personal injury attorney. When people refer to personal injury attorneys as ambulance chasers, how do you react to that?
I don't consider myself your typical personal injury lawyer, though. And I think how we break the mold is by providing personal service, personal attention. Every client gets our cell phone number. And we have the intention of taking the case as far as it actually needs to go to maximize the compensation our clients obtain and to try to make them as whole as possible. Now, you can't always make the client whole. You can't always return them back to health. But we want to give them the opportunity to get as much of a bite or pound of flesh as possible and to get them, compensation as commensurate with the injuries that they've incurred, the damage they've incurred as a result. Our industry has a very bad reputation. We're looked at as the bottom feeders, as ambulance chasers, because you see certain lawyers and law firms that hawk their wares 24/7 on network television, cable TV, the radio, billboards, wherever you go, You're seeing PI attorneys. They're like roaches coming out of the woodworks.
It also has to do with the clients that they attract. In my industry, we're looking for top CEOs and founders. We're looking for people that understand that you get paid in direct proportion to the value that you provide others. We're not interested in working with people that want growth hacks. We're not interested in working with people that simply just want to make money at the expense of their customers or clients. And you see the same thing in personal injury. This happened to my wife a few years ago. Somebody hit my wife. They couldn't have been doing more than having the car in gear. I don't even know that there was any damage to the vehicle itself. It was just the car was in gear. And all of a sudden she's complaining that her neck is killing her and her back is killing her and the whole deal. People try to take advantage of the situation looking to capitalize on the craziest of things. And I think the people itself are just as much at blame for having the industry to be at fault.
Yeah, what comes first, the chicken or the egg theory? In this case, I think the attorneys hawking their wares to the lowest common denominator. You're seeing individuals who probably otherwise would never have had a claim or would have been scrutinized by better lawyers. Suddenly, these volume shops are taking on such claims. That's my theory. We try to ferret those cases out very quickly, and some of those cases are very obvious on their face. Others take a little bit longer. The better the case, I often see, the better the client. And the clients with the bigger cases, these clients bother you less. Clients are going to call, they're going to ask questions, they're going to need things from you. And that's fine. It's a client that's calling every single day for an update on when is my case going to settle. That's a client that red flags start popping off. And these often are the very same clients who have pill-seeking behavior and other behavior that is indicative of an individual does not have a legitimate personal injury case.
Got it. You look on the highway, you drive down every few 100 feet. I feel like there's another billboard for personal injury attorneys.
Correct.
You turn on the TV, there's another commercial of personal injury attorney. It's super loud, super messy. So how did you cut through all of that noise to get to the point where you're at now?
I will say that damages the best trial lawyer, it makes it more difficult for us to get our job done in front of a jury because it damages the jury pool. The jury pool out there, all the citizens in the state of Florida, that they're exposed to this nonstop, 24/7, watching these commercials, seeing these billboards. It's a very bad reputation. When I'm picking a jury, or when my colleague Stan, who does a lot more trials, picking a jury, we ask them right off the bat, what's your understanding of personal injury lawyers? And 5 out of 10 times they're calling us ambulance chasers. We're looking for a low-hanging fruit, that we're damaging the industry, that would make insurance more expensive for your average consumer. So how do we cut through that? By not being them, by not being the lawyer on television. We have a couple of billboards locally just so people know where we are. We planted our flag, and we've never expanded beyond that, taking case to trial. And we're not rare in that extent. Most lawyers, most PI lawyers do not actively try cases. I would say about 40% of them have an active litigation practice, but maybe 10% try cases. And even fewer than that try more than one case per year. So our firm is rare in the extent that we try on a given year between 4 to 7 jury trials. The fact that we actually litigate cases that make us rare, not per se, but the fact that the insurance company has to worry about us. And again, this is a risk management profession. The insurance companies, we pose a risk to them. It's a claim. You could be the world's worst trial lawyer. We're not the world's worst trial lawyers, but you're still better than the lawyer down the block who never tries a case.
And we're not just talking about accidents. I don't know how comfortable you're sharing these stories, but this goes way beyond a car accident. This is something that where you're holding big corporations accountable to making decisions for profit rather than for the interest of their clients.
Correct.
Just wanted to give our audience a sampling of the type of work that you're involved in.
Guys, a number of our products involve mass torts, and that's a number of claims stemming from a single event. An example of that most folks at least know about is Camp Lejeune, for instance. The water was contaminated at Camp Lejeune by a number of different carcinogens, and we represent probably now about 700 former Marines who have sustained a wide range of different injuries. And I want to contrast a class action versus a mass tort. A class action is, think of your like Dell laptop. The battery is defective. Everyone has the same exact injury.
Sure.
That deformity is a class action. In a mass tort, everyone has different types of injuries and different degrees of severity. Some may have suffered esophageal cancer. Others have colon cancer. Some are stage 1, some are stage 4. Some have actually died. In regards to acetaminophen, the use of acetaminophen during pregnancy has been linked to a greater risk of autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders. We represent about 3,000 individuals in that case. That's speculative. It's what's called pre-Daubert. Daubert is eventually a hearing that we're going to go to, that the plaintiff lawyers go to, where we have to prove up the science, where experts from our side and experts from the defense side ferret out the science. That's where the case usually gets either cut off or it goes forward, and based on the strength of the science. We also represent a number of Black women. For years, there was, I guess, the perception that Black women were more susceptible to uterine cancer and other fertility diseases. And it turns out that they're not. It's just that they use chemical hair straighteners based on societal norms. And chemical hair straighteners have what's called endocrine disrupting chemicals in them, these type of cancers to proliferate in the human body.
Gotcha. How is the marketing different when you're going for a mass tort, class action, or even just for that matter, the accident cases?
It's actually easier to pick up mass tort cases than it is to pick up the single event car accident, slip and fall, product liability, medical malpractice cases, because there's a lot of firms that take on mass torts. They don't put the effort into organic outreach. You'll see these firms blogging, educating the consumers. They're more likely to spend a ton of money, or at least they'll attempt to spend a ton of money on pay-per-click lead generation. So you'll see them use a lot of landing pages and just specific pay-per-click campaigns as opposed to organic blogging. So you put the effort into the organic outreach, although it's not as easy as pay-per-click. It takes a lot more effort. It's not as quick to work, but when it works, it's going to work well, and you're not spending nearly as much for cost per acquisition, and you're going to reap the rewards if you just put the effort in.
You've had this law firm for a while. When did you start it?
I started in July of 2009. So we're now in our, 14 years.
There you go.
I never really even think about it. Okay.
What's changed in marketing in the past 14 years for you?
A lot more firms have a statewide presence. So if we look back almost a decade ago, or even 6-7 years ago, we did in a Tampa Bay market, for instance, I didn't see anyone other than Morgan & Morgan and maybe Dan Newland, who's a big law firm in Orlando, advertising. And by the way, some of these TV firms are very good. Most of the television firms tend to be settlement mills, but not everyone. So I don't want anyone to draw the conclusion that every last firm that advertises on television, or God forbid, these guys are listening to it, think I'm poking fun at them. That's not true. But now we're seeing 20 firms advertising the Tampa market, where it used to be 2 or 3 firms. We're seeing a lot more billboards for law firms that aren't even located in Tampa Bay, that are in West Palm Beach or Broward County or Dade County. So a lot more firms are advertising statewide. There's a lot less room for a young lawyer to get into the game and market.
Got it. How have you gotten more visibility over the years beyond
Blogging.
just organic, right? What else
Sure.
have you done?
I appear on a number of different podcasts, including yours, and I really appreciate the invitation. I have my own podcast. Again, the blogging. Whenever I get invited to speak at different functions based on either being a trial lawyer, based on our digital marketing experience, I will show up. The more opportunities I get to speak in front of individuals who then think that I'm an expert, the more often that you are speaking, the greater visibility you have, but it also adds credibility to your name. And that leads to a lot more referrals from other lawyers in the industry, or other individuals, corporate lawyers, tax lawyers, estate planners, medical malpractice lawyers that don't handle car accidents, that only handle med mal, product liability lawyers that don't touch med mal or personal injury. And you name it, some guys are very segmented.
So just make sure our audience picks up on that. Not only is it the organic, one of the things that we talk about in my book is the importance of having multiple different spokes in the wheel. And then few law firms have done what you've done and have really mastered the SEO game to allow that organic traffic to be able to come in. That would be another spoke in the wheel. But just listening to you, you've also talked about all the numerous different partnerships that you've had as well, which created that additional flow of business, and digital media, which you've also mentioned, paid media, which is a big part of it. And then you also do a number of offline media as well, correct?
Correct. If you put all your eggs in one basket, for instance, if you just focus on digital marketing, when Google makes a change, an algorithmic change, or there's just more competitors focusing on organic outreach all of a sudden, you're going to be exposed, especially if there's an algorithmic update. Suddenly, you're not as visible as you were before. And if that's all you have, and it's the only thing that you're focusing on, you're screwed. When you have other sources or streams feeding into that one little river that you have, that's how we obtain our cases. So whether it's organic outreach, it's B2B marketing, it's appearing in as many functions as possible, it's appearing in every last podcast I possibly can be on. I mean, not that I get tons of invitations. I try to be very selective I can, but if it's a personal injury lawyer, I'm going to show up. If it's a real business leader, I'm going to show up. I want to be as open as possible to appearing if it's going to absolutely benefit my brand.
Sure. And part of that brand awareness has served as multiple different benefits. When we look at your PR, I believe it was just last month or maybe the month before, you're almost every month you've got an opportunity where you're somehow in the news. I recently watched
weekly, almost daily now, actually.
Is it daily?
Yeah, and I strongly recommend public relations to any business owner, especially if you're in an industry that's somewhat newsworthy. Now, personal injury per se, it depends if you have a newsworthy type of case, but mass torts are very newsworthy. I'll try to stay away from areas where I clearly I'm not knowledgeable about. Google uses artificial intelligence. So the more often you appear, even if there's not a link back to your website, even if there's not a link back to your profile on social media, just the fact that you're mentioned helps. And it helps Google recognize your brand and you as an authority figure in your industry. So PR is definitely helping us, and PR really benefits, and it goes symbiotic with organic outreach and just organic visibility.
Sure. There's this old quote that says, people don't believe what you say about yourself. People are more likely to believe what your friends say about you, and they're definitely more likely to believe what a third-party trusted source says about you.
And even if they're not saying anything about me, just the fact they're having me on their show or on their site commenting about a specific newsworthy issue makes me look like an expert, gives me visibility in the industry.
Sure.
And to your average consumer, compared to everyone else who is not being quoted, who is not being seen on NBC News, ABC News, recently on Dateline NBC, that helps you. It gets you a lot of visibility. When we're on Dateline, all of a sudden I got hundreds of calls that weren't related necessarily to personal injury, but clearly people saw it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny because we live in this world where attention goes to the influencers, right?
Mm-hmm.
People see somebody who has tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers, and all of a sudden they're a celebrity, and the regular populace gets all gaga over this. But money flows where attention goes.
These guys are showing up anywhere possible, and they were very intelligent. They saw an opportunity on YouTube and social media, and they galvanized that almost movement, if you will, and they became the biggest influencers in their space.
And they've done a really, really a good job at getting that attention. Again, money flows where attention goes. And there's so many people. And I'll admit that this was me not too long ago, where I was comfortable being behind the scenes. I was comfortable supporting our clients and growing their businesses. And I didn't want to take the spotlight. I liked flying under the radar. And as we were looking at all our clients, and those who tended to do the best decided to really lean in on building in that their influence and that personal influence.
Sure.
And the more influence they had, they were able to acquire more leads at a higher conversion rate at a lower cost per lead. And they continued to do really, really well, oftentimes dominating their market space.
Not everyone wants to be front and center.
They
Next,
don't,
you have
but
to understand that you have to put yourself out there, though, and make yourself more visible as a business owner. Otherwise, you're just going to blend into the masses. You're not going to be able to take the next step and really elevate your business unless you put yourself front and center. And that's to the person who wants anonymity, to the individual who does not want to crave attention. It's tough because you're taking yourself out of what you consider to be your norm, but it does work. The more attention you get, the more likely consumers are to trust you.
And the thing is, it's when you think of Apple computer, it's almost hard to disassociate Apple with the story of Steve Jobs. There's always this really, really strong founder's brand. And that's because people, just like in your law firm, the majority of the people aren't choosing to work with Dolman Law because of Dolman Law, the corporation. The majority of the people are choosing to work with Dolman Law because of you, which is why Jake from State Farm has more followers than all of State Farm, even though Jake is a commercial figure.
Fictional character, sure.
People choose to follow the individual and then progressively end up doing business and following the business when they decide to do business with that particular one. So there's definitely a lesson in there for the importance of building in that personal brand and leaning in there. Social media, though, has played a big role as we've been talking about building that personal brand. Personal injury, a lot of people would not necessarily associate social media as playing a big role in the legal landscape, but how has social media played a role in your business?
And there's a lot of misinformation on social media, but at the same point, you have to capitalize on social media because it's one of many avenues in which you can obtain clients.
That's a good point. So talk to the CEO right now that's looking to go beyond seven figures that maybe hasn't leaned into social media in the way that they should have. What advice would you have from them, and what has your experience been?
And with full transparency, I've recently reached out to Charles as well as to coach me on many different ideas. And could I get better at social media? It's one of the things he actually told me. I could get better at using and utilizing social media. We've used it. The way to become a thought leader, at least on social media, is to separate yourself from the masses, put out interesting and even exciting or innovative content that's different from what everyone else is doing, but also it's consistency. If you're not consistent in your approach, you're going to suffer. And we've hired really good companies to help us with this. My biggest problem has just been consistency. And then your other problem you also identified of us, or at least myself, is that I wasn't trying to build my individual brand. I was more focused on, and you talk about this also in your book, and this is a constant theme that you focus on, is building your individual brand as well as your business brand. They identify the brand as you.
Sure. And while it's stuff that we've talked about for a while, and the Harvard Business Review, I think it was in May or June of this year, they talked about the importance of building a personal brand. That was right on the cover of the magazine.
I saw that.
And across the board, we're seeing over and over again, as we mentioned, between Elon and Richard Branson and whatnot, the importance of a personal brand associated with the company itself. But now when you go to Google, if you type in Dolman Law, you're going to see Google is going to take you to the business profile, right? So Google has a separate business profile, and then they ask you to claim your business profile. And then there's different bits of information on the business profile. But now for all our listeners here, I want you to type in your personal name. So in your case, you would type in Matthew Dolman, and you're going to get to Matthew Dolman. And then what's going to happen is you're going to see a totally different page. And in that page, they're also going to ask you to claim your knowledge panel for one reason, because they're understanding that there's not just a company out there. There's an individual, there's a founder, there's an expert. And they want you to claim that knowledge panel because of the ways that people do searches. It's not just searching for the business itself. It's searching for the person behind the business. For me, it was a leap of faith to be able to go from sort of that behind the scenes guy to now being more upfront. But success leaves clues, and we got to be able to do what is actually working and what the companies that are controlling the traffic are telling us needs to happen in order for us to continue to build an edge and an advantage.
Sure, and they've been pretty clear about what they want. They want to give the end user, the person who's searching on Google, relevant and related, contextually relevant and related links. And
Right.
those relevant and related links are your Facebook profile, your Instagram profile, TikTok, a personal blog, a personal website. But if you search us or you search my name as an individual or Matthew Dolman, you put the context of attorney, all of a sudden you're going to see a ton of links show up that are relevant and related to what I've done and my accomplishments, or related to my, my industry and what I've blogged about and consumer resources, because Google wants to give the end user the proper information. But the only way to contextualize you, there's a few Matt Dolmans, but if your name's like Bob Evans or Jim Smith, or you have a very common name, there's many of you. But the irony is Dolman is a type of top that is worn in Britain. So I've had to struggle with that. And for a while, we were showing up first for Dolman, but then by 2011, 12, because we blog so much, we eventually surpassed that. And then when you search Dolman Law Group, obviously it became actually relevant. But if you just search Dolman by itself, the tops will show up way before we do as a law firm. You put Dolman Law or Matthew Dolman or Matt Dolman Attorney, then Google understands the context of what you're searching. It's all about the context. For Google to figure out who you are, why you're Jim Smith attorney versus Jim Smith the engineer versus Jim Smith the marine scientist, the only way they figure that out is other contextually relevant links and related links to what you've done with your life or done with your career, done with your profession, that they can assist the end user with, whoever's searching for you.
Sure. My uncle told me many years ago, he said, Charlie, you know the reason why most people are successful? The reason why most people are not successful and only the few are? And I said, why? He goes, because most people aren't willing to do the hard work that's required. Like, you got to do the hard
100%.
work. But I think hard work is often misconstrued. But growing up and looking at my dad, I tied hard work with long work. And hard work, in many ways, is that intellectual energy that you have to expel in order to create a strategic advantage. The ability to sit back and think about it, push your brain, push yourself beyond what the public is doing. You look at SEO.
Mm-hmm.
SEO, the easy thing is with AI, you can turn around and you can create hundreds of different articles. That's easy. There's no real competitive advantage. Everybody can do that. So what is a competitive advantage? As long as you have a few dollars in your wallet that you can spend with an SEO agency to optimize the articles, the content, all that other jazz, buy the backlinks, where's a competitive advantage of that? And I don't see that as hard work. I think that's a shortcut.
No.
So the hard work, when you really connect the dots, is, okay, what's hard? What is something that you actually have to earn? They have to be strategic, and you getting on the media every single day. Well, that's hard work. That gets that little bit of advantage. Building a personal brand associate separate from a business brand, that's freaking hard work. But that hard work is really about just pushing yourself over and over and over again to try to do things that are just slightly different than everybody else. And when we're looking at the new changes in generative AI, and Google's already said that their search engines will be changing to more of a chat-based feature. We're already starting to see it with Bing. It's going to completely disrupt the SEO industry. And it's going to lean in a lot more to those people who are more strategic and build in that thought leadership.
So anyone can hire a digital marketing agency. They all do the same exact thing. A lot of it's pay to play. You can just buy yourself these backlinks. You can get great backlinks from Newsweek, Business Insider, Fortune, Forbes. They all sell their links. The way you differentiate yourself is, and we could tie this into AI. If you're going to use AI, you have to clean that content, use Grammarly, and almost wash it by going through the syntax of it and going through the sentences, because it's going to be very wonky, which I still do not recommend doing. What I recommend using AI for is creating what's called topic clusters, content silos. So like, for instance, pick a topic. When I wanted to rank in the top 5 in the country I handle a number of lawsuits on behalf of firefighters who use this thing called aqueous form-filling foam. It's a real mouthful, but AFFF, it has known carcinogens. They have what's called forever chemicals of PFAS in it. And these military firefighters were exposed to it over the years, and we represent a number of them in lawsuits throughout the country. But the rank in the top 5 in the country for AFFF was tough. There's a number of law firms that are competing against us. The way we did it is to create what's called content clusters. And how do you do that? You have a topic page. That's your main practice page. And then you start answering every single question you possibly can about AFFF. And AI will feed that to you. It'll provide an outline of different topics to cover. And then you suddenly write all these different blogs, and each blog links back to your main practice page, and that elevates your practice page. Suddenly, Google contextually understands the point of your main practice page. They now relate all these different pages that you've written to that main practice page. They see you as an expert, authority figure in that area.
And this is exactly what we're talking about when we're saying to be strategic, to that hard work, because that's more than just saying, AI, write me 200 articles over the weekend, which I do know somebody who was bragging about that the other day. I had AI write 200 articles for me and I blasted it all. That's not going to do anybody any favors. Matt, I know we're pushing the clock here. I have two questions for you before we jump off. The first question is the 800-pound gorilla in the industry, Morgan & Morgan. They outspend everybody by leaps and bounds. And so everybody in every industry has got that 800-pound gorilla, the 800-pound gorilla that outspends everyone else. What advice do you give to the CEO listening that is trying to find ways to compete with their own 800-pound gorilla?
Separate yourself from the masses. And the way you do that is it's just hard work. My sub-discipline, I would say, is being a digital marketer. And how I've been able to shine is just I've outworked my competitors and I've outworked Morgan & Morgan. They can outspend me in pay-per-click, but on organic marketing, which is becoming more and more difficult as Google starts to monetize every last area of search, the only last frontier, customer's last stand, is organic SEO, and there's less real estate devoted to that every year. But we still shine that area and generally outrank Morgan toe-to-toe. The problem is he's in 46 states and we're in only 4. But in the 4 states we're in, we outrank them. And the reasons being is you can't replace hard work. How do you get around the 800-pound gorilla? Swim the opposite direction that they're going in. Hire a PR specialist. That is so important in pretty much every industry. You're going to get yourself a lot of exposure, and that's going to help you in a number of different ways. And one of those ways is digital marketing. You're suddenly going to show up in the search engine, and Google knows you didn't pay for these links. It's earned media, and earned media is the best media you could possibly ever get.
Awesome.
And it's cheap. PR is so cheap compared to television and radio. I spend maybe $5,000, $10,000 a month, and I'm getting interviews all the time. Once people perceive you as an expert, suddenly you get invited to bigger news stations, and they don't even bother vetting you. They just put you on there because they see other people vetted you already.
This is a Beyond Seven Figures podcast. What would you say is your best tip for listeners wanting to know how to take their business beyond 7 figures?
I would align myself with 2 things. One, a real legitimate business coach, whether it's Charles or one of his peers out there. This isn't the plug, Charles. Hire someone that's going to keep you on task, that's going to challenge you. It's going to give you ideas. It's like having a trainer at the gym. But if I have a trainer, I have to actually show up. Now I'm accountable. Now I have to report back to Charles every week, who looks at me with just his face of disgust when I don't do anything that he told me to go do, because all he's doing is actively helping me achieve what I want to achieve, which is more success in my firm and to grow our visibility and to be more successful. And they all feed into one another. I recommend hiring a PR specialist also. That will get you exposure within your brand. It'll help you with B2B marketing, and it'll help you get just overall visibility for your brand and you as an individual.
Awesome, brother. And if people want to learn more about you and the work that you do and so forth, where's the best place for them to find you?
Sure. Just my website, which is a great resource for personal injury information. It's www.dolmanlaw.com. That's D like in David, OLMANLAW.com. On there, you can find my email address, which is matt@dolmanlaw.com. If any of your listeners have any questions or want to discuss digital marketing or my thoughts on PR or business coaches or Charles in general or anything, and just reach out to me. I'm very transparent and I'm overly friendly, and I love to help others out.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up today's episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast with my friend Matt Dolman over at Dolman Law, DOLMANLAW, dolmanlaw.com. So as a reminder, for more tips and information on taking your business beyond 7 figures, also check us out at predictableprofits.com. Again, that's predictableprofits.com. This is Charles Gaudette, and I will see you in another episode.